California is burning. Again, the skies have turned an eerie shade of orange, families are fleeing their homes, and the relentless roar of flames echoes across the valleys. But this isn't just another wildfire season. This time, it's different. What if I told you that the flames tearing through California's forests and cities are only part of the story? Beneath the smoke lies a deeper tale, one of missed opportunities, overlooked warnings, and a system struggling to contain a crisis that grows bigger every year. These fires have consumed not just land but lives, both the ones taken by the flames and the ones forever changed in their wake. And the question remains, could this devastation have been prevented, or are we doomed to repeat this tragedy over and over again? In today's video, we'll uncover the untold story behind California's wildfires, the heroic efforts, the tragic losses, and the hard truths we all need to face. My name is your name, and if you're interested in stories that matter, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. To understand why California burns, we first need to understand what makes it so vulnerable. On the surface, it's a land of contrasts, beautiful, thriving, and full of life. But beneath this postcard-perfect exterior lies a dangerous combination of natural and man-made factors waiting for the perfect spark. Wildfires are nothing new here. For centuries, they were a natural part of the ecosystem, clearing old growth to make way for new life. But today, they've grown into something far more destructive. In the last 2 decades alone, California has seen some of the largest and deadliest fires in its history. Why? The answer is in the perfect storm of conditions. The drought, a 23-year-long megadrought, has left the state's forests dry as kindling. The climate, temperatures rising, and unpredictable weather patterns make fire seasons a thing of the years. But it's not just nature. Urban development has played a huge role, with homes and cities expanding into areas that were once wild. These places, known as the wildland-urban interface, have become ground zero for disaster. People living closer to forests means more chances for human-caused fires and more lives at risk. And while nature and development have set the stage, decades of fire suppression policies have made the situation worse. By putting out smaller, natural fires instead of letting them run their course, we've created overgrown forests packed with fuel just waiting to ignite. It's a dangerous mix, a state shaped by fire, climate change turning up the heat, and decades of decisions that have left us more vulnerable than ever. But what lit the match for this year's devastation? We shall see in Part 3 the spark that ignited California into an inferno. This year, California's wildfires have been relentless. Over 10,000 structures have been destroyed and at least 11 lives lost, which are not fires but catastrophic events reshaping whole communities. The most devastating fires, the Palisades Fire, started from a small flicker of flames in a canyon. Within hours, it spread into an unstoppable force, burning thousands of acres and forcing mass evacuations. In another corner of the state, the Eaton Fire burned with equal ferocity, destroying everything in its path. For the people living in these areas, it wasn't just about the flames. It was about survival. Over 180,000 residents were forced to evacuate, leaving behind homes they might never see again. And for the heroes on the front lines, this year has been one of their toughest battles yet. Strong winds turned small fires into massive infernos, while dry fire hydrants and outdated infrastructure hampered efforts to stop the spread. "We're fighting more than just fire," one firefighter said. "We're fighting time, conditions, and resources." The toll isn't just physical, it's emotional. Families like this one have lost everything: their homes, their memories, their sense of security. And for many, the question is no longer if they'll rebuild, but how they'll recover. While the flames raged, so did debates over leadership and preparedness. Critics pointed to unfulfilled promises of wildfire prevention, and issues like dry fire hydrants fueled accusations of negligence. Even famous figures like actor Mel Gibson and podcaster Joe Rogan called the state's response into question. These fires did not destroy land only, but exposed cracks in the system. However, what's more astonishing is what happened afterward. An inquiry on how things had gone so bad and who is responsible. Part 4 unfolds deeper truths into chaos. As the flames died down, the questions began to rise. How did these fires spread so quickly? Could they have been contained sooner? And who or what was responsible for the chaos that left California in ashes? The investigations revealed a troubling web of issues. One of the most glaring problems was infrastructure. Firefighters reported arriving at scenes only to find dry fire hydrants, leaving them scrambling for water when seconds could mean the difference between life and death. Governor Gavin Newsom faced a storm of criticism, with many accusing his administration of failing to follow through on wildfire prevention promises. Back in 2019, $2 billion was allocated to wildfire mitigation. But in the wake of this year's destruction, people were left asking, where did that money go? On the ground, firefighters described a desperate fight against overwhelming odds. "We're doing everything we can," one firefighter said, "but we can't do it alone. We need better resources, more preparation, and leadership that prioritizes prevention." For the people who lost everything, the response wasn't enough. Evacuees asked themselves why the state hadn't cleared more dry brush, built fire breaks, or had stiffer building codes in fire-prone areas. But perhaps the most stunning revelations came from whistleblowers and investigators who said that decades of mismanagement had set the stage for these disasters. Fire suppression policies intended to protect property had inadvertently created overgrown forests full of fuel, just waiting for a spark. The blame doesn't fall on one person or one policy. It's a complex web of decisions, delays, and denial. But the question remains, can California break free from this cycle of destruction, or are we destined to see history repeat itself? For most of us, wildfires are a headline or a news clip. But for the people living through them, they're a personal apocalypse. Every wildfire has its survivors, its heroes, and its tragedies, and the stories behind this year's fires are no exception. This is Elena. Her family had just finished renovating their dream home when the Palisades fire swept through their neighborhood. "We had 10 minutes to pack up and leave," she says. "We grabbed the dog, some clothes, and this photo. Everything else is gone." Then there are the stories of bravery. Captain Mark Wallace of the Los Angeles Fire Department recalls the moment he and his team rescued a family trapped in their home. "The flames were closing in fast," he says. "We had no time to think, just to act." The family survived, but Mark admits it was one of the closest calls of his career. At shelters like this one, evacuees find more than a roof over their heads. They find a lifeline. Volunteers bring meals, clothing, and hope. But even here, the emotional toll is evident. Parents worry about how they will explain the loss to their children, while others silently mourn the lives they have built. Take George and Martha, for example. Married for 40 years, they faced floods and earthquakes, but this wildfire took more than their home. It took their sense of safety. "We don't know where to go from here," Martha admits, "but we're thankful we still have each other." And yet, amidst the ashes, there's resilience. In neighborhoods across California, people are coming together to rebuild. Fundraisers, donation drives, and volunteers are stepping up to show that even when everything is lost, hope remains. The human stories behind these fires remind us of the strength it takes to start over. But as these communities rebuild, the question looms: how can we ensure they won't have to do this again? In Part 6, we'll examine the economic and environmental toll of California's wildfires. When California burns, the costs go far beyond what we can see. The flames may last for days or weeks, but their impact lingers for years, economically, environmentally, and emotionally. This year's wildfires have already racked up an estimated $150 billion in damages. That's not just homes and businesses, it's infrastructure, power lines, roads, and entire industries. For a state that powers much of the U.S. economy, these losses ripple far and wide. People like Derek, who owned a local coffee shop in Los Angeles, are starting from scratch. "It wasn't just my livelihood," he says. "It was a place where the community came together. Now it's all gone." But the financial losses are only part of the story. Over 180,000 Californians have had to evacuate. Some may never come back home. The cost of losing one's home or a whole community is impossible to quantify. The state spends billions on recovery efforts, and that's just never enough, says one critic. Insurers are woefully overwhelmed, and the federal support, when it arrives, often is too late. For many, rebuilding may be impossible. And then there is the environmental cost. California's wildfires burn through as much carbon dioxide in weeks as countries do in an entire year. This pushes the world further into the climate crisis. Wildlife habitats are destroyed, water supplies get contaminated, erosion starts to become a long-term threat. We lose more than trees when we lose these forests, says Dr. Maria Hernandez, an ecologist. These ecosystems take decades to recover. And with fires occurring more often, some areas might never go back to what they were. The costs of these fires are staggering, but the real question is, can we afford to keep paying them? In Part 7, we'll explore what California is doing, and what it should be doing, to break free from this cycle of destruction. California knows it can't stop wildfires entirely, but can it learn to live with them? The solutions to this crisis are out there, but they come with challenges, costs, and sacrifices. One of the most promising solutions is controlled burns, deliberately setting small, manageable fires to clear out dry brush and prevent larger, uncontrollable wildfires. Indigenous communities have been doing this for hundreds of years, and professionals agree it's time to do this on a more massive scale. Dr. Peter Wilson, a fire ecologist, explains, controlled burns are a proven method to reduce fuel loads. The problem is they require careful planning, funding, and public trust, because not everyone is comfortable with the idea of intentionally starting fires. Another key is funding. While the state of California has invested billions in preventing wildfire, critics claim it's not enough. It takes time and money to clear overgrown forests, update infrastructure, and educate the public, and many claim that the state is playing catch-up. New technologies are also having an impact. Fire-resistant building materials, AI-powered fire detection systems, and community sprinkler networks are already proving effective at protecting high-risk areas. But such improvements can come at great cost, potentially making it even worse for poorer districts. Gavin Newsom, the newly elected governor, vowed to concentrate on fire prevention and promised expansion of forest management and upgrading the emergency response system. But critics feel this is a campaign promise not really delivered upon this year. Then there's a human element toward the solution. Stricter building codes, fire insurance mandates, and limits on development in fire-prone areas are all on the table. But these changes come with sacrifices not everyone is willing to make. The solutions are clear, but the sacrifices are harder to accept. Can California rally its people, its leaders, and its resources to face the fire head-on? Or will these solutions remain ideas on paper? In Part 8, we'll uncover the role of climate change in turning up the heat. California's wildfire crisis isn't just a matter of bad luck or poor planning. It's a symptom of a planet in peril, a planet warming faster than ever before, with consequences that are impossible to ignore. For decades, scientists have warned that rising temperatures would fuel more intense wildfires, and in California, those predictions have become reality. Warmer temperatures dry out forests faster, turning vegetation into tinder that ignites with the smallest spark. Dr. Sarah Chen, a climate scientist, elaborates, "We're seeing longer fire seasons, more extreme weather events, and a higher frequency of lightning strikes, all fueled by climate change. These are not natural cycles, they're the consequences of human actions." But the impacts of climate change extend beyond California's borders. Melting polar ice caps and rising sea levels are altering weather patterns worldwide, creating conditions ripe for wildfires in places once considered safe. Around the world, people are demanding action. From youth activists to global leaders, the call for climate justice grows louder. But as temperatures rise and disasters escalate, the window for meaningful change is narrowing. California has been a leader in climate policy, with ambitious goals to reduce emissions and invest in renewable energy. But with wildfires becoming more frequent and destructive, many wonder if these efforts are enough, or if it's already too late. Transitioning to clean energy, protecting forests, and reducing carbon footprints are crucial steps. But without global cooperation and political will, the future remains uncertain. As California grapples with its wildfire crisis, the link to climate change grows stronger. In Part 9, we'll explore the future of wildfire management and what it means for us all. As California begins the healing process of yet another brutal wildfire season, people look to the future. From beyond the burn zones, From communities trying to find ways to restart and rebuild after catastrophic wildfires and rising temperatures have devastated their landscape, what does the future mean for wildfire management, community resilience, and climate adaptation? Emily Rodriguez, a wildfire expert, says, "We need to rethink how we manage landscapes. This means integrating controlled burns, updating building codes, and investing in early warning systems. Emergency responders are also adapting. Advanced technology, from drones to satellite imagery, is revolutionizing fire detection and response times. But these tools require funding and expertise to be effective. Community resilience is another key factor. Neighborhood watch programs, evacuation drills, and mutual aid networks prove to be saving lives and reducing damage. On the policy front, lawmakers are under pressure to act. Strengthening environmental protections, promoting sustainable development, and incentivizing climate-smart practices are critical steps toward a safer future. Governor Gavin Newsom has committed to expanding firefighting resources and implementing stricter regulations. But with each passing year, the challenge grows, and so does the need for decisive action. As California faces a new era of wildfires, the path forward is clear: innovation, collaboration, and a commitment to protecting our planet. In our final part, Part 10, we'll reflect on the lessons learned and the hope for a brighter, fire-resistant future. As we close our journey through California's wildfire crisis, it is time to reflect on the lessons learned, the challenges ahead, and the hope for a more resilient future. For many, this year's fires were a wake-up call. Families who lost everything found strength in community support and the determination to rebuild. "We won't let the flames define us," one survivor says. "We are stronger together." Climate scientists predict that, in the absence of bold climate change action, wildfires will worsen and worsen. "We are at a critical juncture," explains Dr. Thomas Garcia. "Reducing emissions, protecting ecosystems, and adapting to new norms are critical to our survival." Around the world, voices are rising for climate justice, from youth activists to indigenous leaders. The call for systemic change is growing louder than ever. Will governments and corporations listen? In California, Governor Gavin Newsom has promised to spearhead the movement. "We can't wait for this moment anymore," he asserts. "Our future depends on bold action now." From renewable energy initiatives to regenerative agriculture, California is charting solutions that will not only protect against the danger of wildfires, but also shape a more sustainable future for everyone. Looking toward the future, one thing stands out. The road ahead will be tough, but not insurmountable. By learning from our past, embracing innovation, and standing together, we can build a future without wildfires that wreak havoc on the lives and the landscapes.